Hi, friends. Thank you for joining us. This is Food for Thought. And I am Sunil Chandy. I am a priest here at Christ Episcopal Church, the rector and priest here, and one of the clergy staff that we have at our church. And we thank you for being with us here at Food for Thought. And if you are with us today, please say hello. Tell us that you're here. Help us to know that that we're connecting with you, and that you will connect with us and all of the people who are watching the show. Usually, hi, Jan, how are you? Good to see you. Good to see that you're online with us, and blessings to you and your family. And there are other people who are watching as well. I know that Missy Bennett is watching, maybe even David Jocelyn is watching, and that would be super if they are. And they are watching, I think, and they're a blessing to us as well. And there are other people who are watching on the various platforms we have, of course. We have the YouTube platform. We also have our platform through our website. And so thank you for being with us. And today is a Tuesday after Columbus Day, or Indigenous Holiday Day, or whatever the new name change is. But whatever the case may be, we're happy that you're here. Today, I was thinking about disorientation. There's this really wonderful book that I'm reading by Walter Brueggemann, who is a wonderful theologian. It's a small little book, and I may even consider using it for a Bible study or a book discussion. But it's called The Spirituality of the Psalms, and it talks about really the Psalms or Walter Brueggemann suggests that the Psalms can be kind of broken into patterns, the various Psalms, and in general they could be broken into three kind of distinct ways of thinking. And Psalms of orientation, then there's Psalms of disorientation, and then Psalms of reorientation. It's kind of like you're going along this way, something happens, and you're disoriented, and then you are then reorienting yourself to the new normal. And in this process, he suggests that there is even in the reorientation, there is new insights that are gained. And I'm reading that book because it kind of reminds me of what we're facing as a global community, and a faith community as well. I mean, we were in a time of orientation where everything seems to be going normal. Then all of a sudden, COVID-19 happens, and now there's disorientation, and we're in the midst of that. And then, but we are in the midst of also moving towards a reorientation of who we are and what we do in general. And of course, there will be another reorientation as we deal with this particular challenge. But all the while, I think Brueggemann suggests that through this process, we always get some new insights, some new learnings about who we are and our relationships with one another and our relationship with God. And what he says in the Psalms, those orientation Psalms, the ones that are going normal, are usually like the ones that everyone loves, like the one that says, "Oh God, thank you for life. Life is so good. Everything is going so well, and you are the source of every great blessing. And oh God, you are. We're thankful for you." Right? You start off there, and then there are some Psalms that really get kind of in the midst of disorientation. There's really anger. The psalmist is crying out, and he says, "Look, I'm like a worm, and God, I have a complaint. You're not doing your part of the bargain here. You're not helping me the way I want to. I'm feeling so lost. They're all after me. They're all trying to kill me. Everyone is trying to crush my bones." And then, of course, then there's the reorientation Psalms, where we say, "Oh my God, even in the midst of this, you come out. you come out and give me something new and new understanding that helps me to understand my place in the world and my relationships, and you purify, you kind of help me to figure out what is most important in this, and there's a place of peace, right? And so I kind of wanted to just, we're in the state of disorientation, and this Psalm 31 is an example that he lists as a psalm of disorientation. Verses 11 through 15 is really interesting. Look, I'm the scorn of all my adversaries, a horror to my neighbor, an object of dread to my acquaintances. Those who have seen me in the street flee from me. I have passed out of mind like the one who is dead. I have become like a broken vessel. For I hear the whispering of many, terror all around me as they scheme together against me, as they plot to take my life. This is just an example of a disorienting kind of psalm. And I wonder, and I know I have too, in the midst of worry, in the midst of things where the center of our life is kind of taken away, I wonder, and I know that I have, and I'm assured that you have too. You voice this type of anger, and sometimes you might want to say, "Oh my God, I shouldn't be thinking that way. I shouldn't be talking to God or even yelling at God for my situation and circumstance." But I suggest to you that the psalmists are doing this for a purpose. The psalmist grapples with the reality and the truth of the moment. And that truth of the moment is not always going to be pleasant, is it? When we deal with particular challenges, when we have the center of our lives disrupted, we're going to be angry. We're going to be frustrated. The psalmist, the greatest act of faith the psalmist can engage in is this act of faith that allows him to know that he could speak truthfully and complain truthfully to God. Because at the end of the day, he gives it back to God. He or she gives it back to God. And he says, and basically the psalmist, the one who complains, the person says, look, I can't handle this by myself. I need you. I need your intervention. I need a sense of your interaction with me so that I could understand how to make sense of my life. And then after the complaint, the psalmist always moves back to remembering the goodness of God in the past, when the psalmist has gone through these type of, or the psalmist or the nation or the people around him or this, whatever the situation, he remembers God's goodness, and then he lets go of the complaint, knowing that somehow God's going to get him through. It's beautiful because it's an interesting, intimate relationship that the psalmist has with God. And I hope that that's the type of relationship we have with God too, where God isn't some distant figure out there. God can be someone that we could complain to. When our lives are screwed up, when our lives are frustrated and filled with anxiety and worry, pray. But pray not with flowery, gentle language, but pray with truth in mind. Pray with the idea that there's someone listening, and then trust that that person who is listening will help. The psalmist at the end of the psalm always reminds himself of the goodness of God. And then it's almost as if after articulating all of the frustration, he finds himself in a new place. a place of peace and calm. Even in Psalm 31, it says, love the Lord, all you saints. The Lord preserves the faithful, but abundantly repays the one who acts haughtily. Be strong. Let your heart take courage, all who wait for the Lord. Friends, even in this great challenge that we are facing, this great disorienting experience of this global plague, complain. Complain in your prayers, but then trust that God listens and then wait patiently for him. Today we have a wonderful guest. He's a guest that I've been wanting to get for a while, Joe Tasca. He works for the Public Radio, NPR, and so I'd like to read a little bit about his bio. Joe Tasca is a lifelong Westerly native. He went to St. Michael's Elementary School in Pawcatuck before attending Westerly High School, class of 1999. He graduated from Quinnipiac University in Hamden, Connecticut in 2003. Joe has been a host and a reporter at Rhode Island's NPR affiliate since September of 2018, and also serves as news director at WBLQ in Westerly. He's a Westerly native with over 20 years of experience in broadcast journalism. I'm looking forward to talking with him. Dave, can you please bring Joe Tasca on board? Hi, Joe.
Father, good afternoon. You make me sound much more accomplished than I feel I actually am. But
well, you're a humble man. You are accomplished. You're accomplished.
I appreciate the accolades.
Well, I just so appreciate your presence here. I mean, we had the other day we had Alex Nunes, who's also a correspondent for the Public's Radio, and I'm so pleased that you have a station, that you're going to have a station or a studio here in town. I think it's so important for Southern Rhode Island and Connecticut, in this area that we're a part of.
Yeah, it's a project that we've been working on for nearly 2 years now. We're going to have a studio at the United Theater right in the center of downtown Westerly, and I'm certainly looking forward to it. I'm in a unique position because I've worked at the local station here at town, WBLQ, with Chris DiPaolo for 21 years now.
Yes.
So I've covered, I'm fortunate, I'm also from Westerly, so it's really cool to be able to cover your hometown as a reporter for this long, and to be able to do it for NPR also is an honor and a privilege, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, we had Chris DiPaolo here the other day as well, and he's such a gem in our community. So giving, so generous with his time and his attention to our area. But and I love NPR. I listen. I have that experience, the experience I think that's common with all NPR listeners, and that is, like, you get into the car, you put on the NPR station, you get to your destination, and you stay there in the car listening to the radio.
It's called a driveway moment, Father. The driveway moments, yes, they're very common.
Oh God, I have that. I couldn't believe that, But
I didn't realize there was actually a term for that until recent years, until I started working at the NPR affiliate, because I've had that experience so many times where I'm listening to a feature story, and it doesn't have to be NPR. I travel to Canada a lot. I actually hear this on the CBC. I'll pull up to a friend's house, and I find myself sitting in the driveway listening to the end of a story on the CBC or whatever station I'm listening to. So it's a common affliction.
It's well, I've only had it on when I'm listening to NPR. I mean,
okay,
so I really love the radio station. I think it's beautiful.
Well, you can learn so much. That's what's really awesome about listening to the radio in general, is it's not like the internet, where we tend to seek out our own news sources and our own sources of entertainment. When you're listening to the radio, particularly an NPR affiliate, you are exposed to stories, people, topics that you wouldn't normally be exposed to. And you learn different perspectives and points of view. And I think it's very enlightening. And it's very captivating. And that's why we find ourselves enjoying those driveway moments.
Yeah, and I also get the experience. I love that because it's new knowledge for me. I always love learning new things. But I
Mhm.
also like the perspective of NPR in that it also helps me, it contextualizes the information and helps me to kind of make meaning of my present experience. You know, things that I hear on the radio, even the news, I kind of like with the commentary, and then I'm thinking deeper and deeper about myself and what does it mean for me in my life, which is always great. You know,
Yes, that's an exercise that we should all be partaking in. I think that that's what I enjoy about working at an NPR affiliate is they do take the deep dives, and there is no. I Some people would argue this point, but I don't think there is much of a political slant either. I think that we do a really good job of offering all perspectives, both political, cultural, social, I should say, and that's very important because we're such a diverse society, not just a country, but just we're 8 million people strong in this world, and there's so much to learn from different cultures, different religions, different ethnicities, and it's different. It's difficult sometimes to process all of the differences that we do have with each other. But I do think there are more commonalities, and that's what we try to do with our storytelling at NPR for sure.
yeah, definitely. And I think so I agree that the Empire NPR there's a struggle though. There's a wonderful tension, right, where the person's interpretation is they're trying to be as objective as possible, but there's always in the questioning there is an understanding that we are subjective. Our personal viewpoints do come out. I mean, like when I'm talking to you, right? I'm a person of faith. I'm going to see it from that lens, life in that
Mhm.
general, in general about that. And so the deeper questions of life, I'll be always referring back to my faith. So, but I also try to keep as objective as possible in order to relate to people, right?
You
And
need to have an open mind. It's really interesting because, as you mentioned, as you introduced me, Father, I attended Catholic elementary school in Pawcatuck, right here in the area at St. Michael, and I went there kindergarten through eighth grade. And I'm actually not a very religious person as an adult. However, my Catholic school upbringing really taught me to appreciate the role that religion plays in people's lives. I find that it gives people hope, it gives people purpose, it gives folks a foundation for belief as a way to make sense of the world, and it also gives people a feeling of camaraderie with others who are in the same denomination. So it's really important, I believe, for non-religious people to acknowledge that and to recognize that religion is a force for good in the world.
yeah. It can be, and of course, we all know that it can also be used on the flip side to alienate, to divide, to even cause great frustration and anger and violence. And so,
Mhm.
it's like anything else in life. It has to be approached with fear and trembling, humility and openness. I think, and I think that's the so, one of the functions of religion, I think, at the core of my belief um, is that religion, at its best, helps us to be better people, helps us to connect with one another, to have a relationship with our neighbor, so that it would be a fruitful, hopeful, joyful one, and a relationship with our Creator that sustains us and helps us to find a sense of hope and nurture, even in the most challenging and joyful times of life.
Yes, and it's interesting when you take religion and you apply it to a point in our history where we're going through this global pandemic,
Yeah,
which I think there is a silver lining to what's happening right now. We're 6 months into this, in the United States, and I feel that it's given me perspective on what's meaningful in life. I think that the pandemic is offering all of us an opportunity to think about our lives because we're spending so much time in isolation, in solitude. It's offering us a chance to, ironically, better connect with people on a more meaningful level. You talk about turning to God in times of tribulation. I think that we can also turn to each other. We should be turning to each other when we are in need of human contact, human interaction, even if we can't do it physically as much as we want to, because we all have that need to belong. I think that's the lure of religion is like I said, that camaraderie, that feeling of connection with people of like-mindedness. Human beings all have universal emotions and experiences. And I think thinking about those things, contemplating our lives, reflecting on our behavior and how we can improve as human beings, that's the way that we can have more fruitful and joyful and meaningful relationships with each other. And that's something that we all should be doing during this time where so many people are suffering. Hundreds of thousands of people in this country are dying, and we should be thinking about, and then also you have folks that are struggling to maintain employment. Folks are losing their houses, losing their livelihoods. There's a lot to think about that we need to be contemplating. And maybe these are thoughts that many of us have suppressed and ignored for many, many years. Well, now it's time. It should be very clear that these are things that we all need to be discussing and conversing about in detail, because it's the only way that we're going to better our lives and better our societies is by having these meaningful conversations, both religious and otherwise.
Beautiful. I love it. And you're right. I think, I also agree that, and I think not only is scripture also affirms that in every moment of challenge, there are periods of grace. There are moments of grace, So every challenge that we have seems to be, from my perspective, it seems to be overwhelming. But as we meet those challenges, then we find these pockets of grace that help us through. Like for this situation with the global pandemic, you're right. I mean, we're all secluded on the most part at home. Right? We're isolated from each other. We're watching the TV. We're connecting with each other through the internet. But there are moments of grace here, in my experience, like the people, like the police department, connecting with URI to give food through our local houses of faith to people and within our community that might need it. That's a moment of grace where we reach out to one another, where we think about who we are, and then we do something with it, right? The other experience of grace, I think, and it's kind of almost disturbing, was even because we were all sitting at home, we watched the George Floyd murder on the TV, and all of a sudden, because we are not involved with the distractions of living life, a busy life, we are all confronted with something that seemed, inhuman to people of whatever political spectrum you may be a part of. All looked at it and we say, wow, that shouldn't happen. And so we're kind of like, we were forced to look at something that we didn't want to. And it may have caused some other reactions, but maybe those reactions were necessary or are necessary for us to be a better society.
Absolutely. It's funny that you mention that, Father, because I feel like when tragedy occurs, it offers an opportunity for growth, for self-reflection during the the grieving process, and or even the George Floyd case, even when you don't know somebody personally, just the sight of somebody being killed is so powerful. Um, During this pandemic, so many people have struggled. I mean, mental health has been a conversation that's been at the forefront in the last 6 months. And I can say that over the weekend, I was with some friends who had a mutual friend who unfortunately took his own life about a week and a half ago. And he was
Yeah.
a young man. He was 30 years old, and was with some friends who are in the midst of the grieving process, and you can see the pain and the anguish and the misery that they're going through. And it got me thinking about the fragility of life, the fragility of existence. The human life is a very deeply and compromised affair, and when someone takes his own life, it really brings that home. And it's funny. I had this thought about when you know, it seems like my friends, they're currently in this grieving process. They're at the point where they're all questioning themselves. Is there something I could have done to prevent this from happening? Is I should have seen this coming. I mean, many of us, I would imagine, have those similar thoughts when we know someone who's taken his own life. And of course, what's done is done. But I do believe that something like that can all help us recalibrate and reflect on, okay, well, maybe I couldn't have done something in this case, but maybe this is a chance for me to look at myself in the mirror and think about how can I better express my love and adoration for someone, to let people know that when you're going through a difficult time in your life, you can reach out to me. There are people that love you. There are people that are emotionally invested in your well-being, because I feel that the despair of modern times can be magnified if we don't feel like we have anybody that we can turn to express our innermost and sometimes darkest thoughts that we don't want out there for public consumption. And that's what I've thought about in recent times, is starting in late March when the lockdown first happened. I've really made a point to reach out to people, to stay in touch, and to check in on folks who I know naturally struggle with anxiety, even in good times, because I think it's important for all of us to think about what we mean to each other. Because, as you said, Father, life gets busy. Many of us have families, we have our professional lives, but we still need to always keep in mind that the most important thing in life, the most fulfilling thing, is human relationships. That's the only thing that matters in the end. You can have all the money in the world and you can be as successful materially as you can be, but you're not going to be happy. You're not going to be content. You're not going to enjoy your everyday existence unless you have good people in your lives. And I think we need to be more expressive of how we feel about each other. That's a lesson that I think many of us are learning in the last half year.
Love that. You know, Joe, you're a very thoughtful man. First off, let me just tell you that that's beautiful, and that's a good trait. That's God-given trait, and I hope that you will continue to be thoughtful and reflective as you engage the world. I love what you were saying about this. You know, and first off, I'm so sorry about your friend passing away. I mean, and one of the things that I know is there are some really good questions we could ask, and there are some that are disempowering questions. The disempowering question, whenever anything happens, is why me? Why me? You know, why does it happen to me? It's not a good question in my mind. I think the better question, which is you've asked, is did I learn out of this? What did I learn out of this tragedy so that I could help others? And I think and one of the great things about it is that it caused you to think, even, and I affirm this because I believe the same thing, that mental health counseling is so important, that we need to talk with one another. We need to kind of demystify this idea about mental illness as being unique and as a disorder, but rather as part of our common human experience. so that we all go through tough times, we all go through struggles, we all go through anxiety with fears, and we need to let go of some of the demystify the negativity around it. And so the more we talk to each other and help us to make it more normalized, then we're able to help those people who are really struggling with this stuff, and help ourselves. I mean, and and part of it comes back to what you were saying, the human experiences, what makes us beautifully human is our ability to connect with one another, care for one another, love one another. And and that's a that's a good question. Thank you for asking that question rather than the disempowering one, which is why did it happen to him? Why does it happen to me? Not a really good question. The more important is what do we learn? How do we help others?
Well, life is full of disappointments and failures. When you think about life, you probably have more failures than you do successes on the whole, even people that are very wealthy and materially successful. And I feel like when we do fail, it becomes easier to get up and get back on the horse when we know that we have the support of people that don't really care about our failures, in the sense that we're not being judged negatively for failing. And that's what's really important for us to express to each other is, I'm not concerned about how much money you make. I don't care if you work as a cashier or as a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. That's not what matters. What matters is character. What matters is integrity, having values, having convictions, living a meaningful existence, and expressing that to people. Because I think sometimes when we are struggling on a personal level, you feel alone, like you're the only person in the world who is suffering, which obviously is preposterous. That's not the case. But we feel that way. And if more of us would express our love for each other, and to define what love is, I that's one of the things that I've thought about also recently is it's so easy to say I love you. But what does that mean exactly? It's almost like saying, "Oh, hey, you see a friend on the street. How are you? It's been so long." "Oh, I'm fine." Well, what is that? Are you really fine? Are you kind of fine? Like, what exactly does that mean? So I think when we express our love for each other, we need to talk about what that means. We need to get into detail. You know,
So let me ask you a question, Joe. Just to
sure.
follow up on that. What does love look like for you?
Well, there's, boy, there's so many directions we can go there, Father. To me, love is a strong concern for another person's well-being. It means you have a willingness to sacrifice yourself for the benefit of another without any real expectation of reciprocation. It means that you take a genuine pleasure in the happiness of another person. It means that you have an emotional investment that's been built up over years. You have a history. It means that losing that person, and I think it's important to express this, even though it sounds dark, but telling someone that losing that person would bring you unspeakable misery and anguish. It would leave a gaping hole in your life. To say those things to people touches someone, I think, in a way that's very difficult to put into words. I mean, those kind of sentiments, I truly believe, can get all of us through the trials and tribulations of existence. I will say this one thing that I'm very happy that I've done in the past is I've written people cards, physical cards for their birthdays and weddings and other landmark occasions. And I've been told by people, and I don't want to sound pompous here, but I've been told by friends of mine that they have read cards that I've written to them years prior when they are going through a tough time, because it reminds them of how important they are, at least to me, but hopefully to others in general in their lives. And I know how powerful that is because we all need that affirmation. And I know in my life is I'm 39 years old now, and I wouldn't want to be younger. I'd want my younger body, but I wouldn't want to be younger because I don't feel like I had the courage to express how I feel about people when I was in my 20s. And as I've gotten older, I've gotten better at that because I've thought about life and I've thought about what sustains myself. And I think that's also important for the rest of us. We need each other.
Well said. Joe, I'm so glad that you're here in Westerly. I'm so glad that we've met each other briefly several times before, but I'm glad that we took some time to talk with each other and get to know each other more. I hope that we continue to have a friendship because you are a man filled with love and hope, and I'd like to get to know that a little bit better.
Well, thank you so much, Father. I really enjoyed this. It was a lot of fun.
God bless you, and good luck with the reporting here in Westerly and with NPR and with the radio station in general.
Thank you so much, Father. Look forward to the next time we can speak.
Yes, definitely, folks. This is another example of a great human being, a person who just lives right here in Westerly, Rhode Island, and is a part of our community. And so happy that we have this opportunity to meet. COVID-19 happened, and so did this show because it was a response to our need to connect with one another. And so we have, through this process, found connections with great people in our community, and it is a joy to hear their wisdom. But now our time is fast ending, and so let us join together in prayer. The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Jesus Christ, you traveled through towns and villages, curing every disease and illness. At your command, the sick were made well. Come to our aid now in the midst of the global spread of the coronavirus. Heal those who are sick with the virus. May they regain their strength and health through quality medical care. Heal us from our fear, which prevents nations from working together and neighbors from helping one another. Be present with those in authority who are making hard decisions. Support the medical professionals, emergency responders, and our caregivers. We ask this all in your name, Jesus. Amen. Join with me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not in temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Friends, go in peace to love and serve the Lord. Spread the light of Christ. The world needs it right now.